Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd talk to you about how me and my husband made our wedding bookish and the weirdest gift we received on our wedding day. And you may be wondering how that is relevant to a booktube channel. We'll get there. So I don't remember coming up with this idea, and I actually don't remember having a conversation with my husband about it. I think it's probably a decision I made, and then I told him I'd had this idea, and he went, yeah, probably, and then we did it. I felt a bit icky about wedding gifts from the beginning, because I think traditionally when most people make like gift lists or registries, is because traditionally in the oldie worldy times, people didn't live together before they got married, so the wedding gifts were traditionally about being able to set a couple up for having a house together. So it would be lots of like kitchen stuff and house related stuff and lots of kind of presents to set you up for your life together. But in a modern relationship, most people have been living together for several years before they get married, and in mine and my husband's case, we lived together before we started dating. I can do a full video on our story if you're interested, but we've lived together for a very long time, so we weren't interested in anything like that. And then I think the most common thing to do nowadays is to ask for financial donations, which is a difficult thing to word, and most people will use it towards their honeymoon, but I didn't really want to do that either. And I couldn't tell you where this idea came from. I have heard of some other people doing it. I've made a few TikToks about this and had a couple of comments from people saying that they did this as well, so I don't know if I heard it on the grapevine and then it just wiggled its way into my brain, but I couldn't tell you where I got this idea from. The idea was that we would ask our guests to gift us a copy of their favourite book. Not necessarily a fiction book, it could be a children's book, it could be a recipe book, it could be a reference book that's relevant to their career, it could be anything. And I think my biggest appeal to doing this idea was actually for the children that we invited to the wedding. We didn't have a lot of kids at the wedding. We didn't have a no kids wedding, but I think that was predominantly because there was only 6 children under the age of 18 at our wedding. There wasn't a lot of children anyway, but what I like is that we have books from the children at the age they were when we got married. So one of my cousins, her little girl was only 9 months old when we got married, so we have a record of her favourite book when she was 9 months old. And one of my other cousins' little boys was only 2, so we have his favourite book from when he was 2 years old. And my bridesmaids were 6, 10 and 11 at the time, so we have each of their favourite books from when they were that age, and that's what I love about that. But also we have a little snapshot library of our favourite people in that moment, because I don't think any of us are fickle enough to believe that the people we have at our wedding are the people we're going to have in our lives forever. You know, older family members don't stay around forever, if we're being brutally honest, but also friendships change and careers change and things change. Some people stay, some people go. It doesn't have to be dramatic, you know, traumatic, it's just life. So it's a little snapshot of the people that were important to us when we were 26 years old and we got married. The challenge of our wedding gift, if you want to call it that, was interpreted differently by many people. My mother, for example, gave us a kind of 3-book pattern. She gave us a book that she loved or a series of books she loved when she was a child, which is the famous 5 box set that I've been slowly working my way through this year. She gave us a book that shaped her in her adult life, which was Shogun by James something. And then she gave us a book to help with our a book that we can use in our future, which was a Delia Smith Christmas cooking book, which she actually received as a wedding gift when she got married in 1992. So that book has a lot of history, and you know, that was really fun. But then what we expected and what most people did was just pick their favourite book and give it to us, whether they gave us their original copy or bought a new copy. We got a lot of books and it was lovely. But my aunt and uncle kind of took the brief and ran with it. They each gave us 3 books that were important to them and they loved. They gave us all their original copies. Maybe they were just having a clear out in hindsight, but honestly, who knows? There's a real variety of books and I'm excited to read them. I'm currently reading one of them. It's a non-fiction autobiography about a Scottish criminal. Definitely not something I would have picked up off my own back, but I am enjoying it. But one of the books that, funnily enough, my aunt didn't put her name in, I think it has to have been a joke gift, because if this is my aunt's favourite book, then that's a conversation I don't really want to have. The weirdest book that we received, the weirdest wedding gift we received at all, actually, was a book called The Loving Touch by consultant Dr. Andrew Stanway, A Guide to Being a Better Lover. I believe this book was published in the 80s. I made a TikTok about this book, and it turns out quite a lot of other people have found it in their library or in their grandparents' collections. This edition, published in 1988. The description on the back says, divided into 10 frank and exquisitely illustrated chapters on human sexuality and the impulse to love, The Loving Touch will strip away the clouds of mystery that often surround this subject. It will help you take your first steps through your sexual awakening until you too become an expert in the arts of intimacy. I'm trying not to think too hard about why my aunt gave us this, other than it being a joke. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a prude. I love it. I mean, my favourite romance is genre. My favourite genre is romance. I'm not afraid of reading about adult themes. This, however, has unclothed stock photos, is the best way to describe it. I mean, I don't know, it just feels a bit uncomfortable. I mean, I'm just looking at the introduction and I mean, they've tried to cover up the most sensitive parts, but in this picture in particular, which I'm definitely not showing on YouTube because there's no way I'd get away with that, it's just two people kissing, but the man is holding his hand really awkwardly so that it covers the parts of the boob that would be considered offensive to algorithms and the general public in 1988, but enough of the boob to be relevant in a whole book about sex. Arguably, it's not the pictures that are the most disturbing part, it's the illustrations. But it's not just illustrations, you've got some cartoons, you've got some kind of anatomical drawings, but then you've just got really weird stuff as well. There's just drawings where they clearly didn't have the right stock photos. The anatomical stuff is actually quite interesting. I mean, there's a chapter on masturbation where there's a picture of a man with one arm over his eyes and the other one just holding his three-piece suite, as a phrase that my father used recently, which doesn't look anything like someone having some solo fun time. Oh yeah, then we get into the hand-drawn images. They clearly couldn't, I suppose if they got models to do that, that would literally just be pornography, and I think they're trying to walk the line between those two things. Yeah, there's a real array of first-time sex. I would argue that most people with this book have probably moved past that moment. Oh, we're not afraid of boobs there. Ah, here we go, the inside of the female reproductive system. IUDs and applicators, sponge and diaphragm, fitting an IUD coil. No thanks. Oh, interesting. Mine didn't look like that. Interesting. Well, at least I'm learning something, I guess. I suppose if you were interested in history and the history of sex and the history of sex education, this would probably be an interesting book for you. Well, yeah, there's a hand-drawn picture of how to put on a condom and how to insert. Yep, okay. We've got more awkward stock photos. A graph! Wow, a 3D graph. There's a heading that says, have I had an orgasm? I mean, I think the page that makes me giggle the most is one that I can actually show you. What turns women on? Two men arm wrestling. I just need it known on the record. Those two things are not related. Oh, at least there is a chapter on what turns men on as well. I think I'd prefer a chapter on what turns men off. Learning to touch. Again, learning when not to touch is probably a good idea as well. Yeah, all round, this is an odd book to have in my possession. Something I thought about with the wedding library is that I was anticipating that we'd get a lot. Why am I still looking at this? This is something weird to be looking at whilst trying to say words. One thing I did think about is that I assumed we would receive quite a few children's books, because especially for people who don't read in their adult life, the instinct would be to turn to a book you loved as a child. And we have a great selection of children's books, and what I hope for one day is that if we're lucky enough to be able to have children, I would like my kids' first book collection to be the books that we received as wedding gifts. And they're the kind of books that I would have put on shelves on the wall, so they're not necessarily the most accessible, just because I would like to keep them precious, so that when that kid is older they can appreciate where those books came from and why they're important to us. So they can have books within their own height that they can reach and rip apart and destroy in whatever way they want, but these ones will be kept nicer. But then this one would obviously stay in the rest of the collection with the adult books and the proper novels and such. But do I need to put that out of reach? I can see that inspiring a conversation with a toddler that I don't think I want to have. I'll be honest, the whole reason I thought this video would be fun to make is because I made a TikTok because my aunt has mentioned several times that I talk about the wedding library, but there's one book that I never talk about, and it's this one. And to be fair, there's loads of books that I haven't talked about yet. We received nearly 100 books on that day, and I've been reading one a month for not even 2 years, so there's no way that I've got through that many of them yet. I thought I'd talk about it on TikTok, and it's now got over 10,000 views, which is a lot for me. So I thought perhaps we could see. Wouldn't want to leave you guys out, so I thought I'd bring it to YouTube as well. That is the weirdest wedding gift we received, and obviously I'm incredibly grateful for it. I will leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to hear more about the books in the wedding library, do let me know. I can definitely make more videos about them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!